Hello, today we're going to learn about factoring and expanding polynomials, and this is all just college algebra review. So we got to factor this one, so we have 15a cubed b squared minus 45a squared times b cubed minus 60a squared b. So what I'm going to first do is factor out what is the biggest I'm going to factor out a GCF. So I'm looking at it and I can factor out a 15 because they both can factor out a 15 and 15 is the biggest. So what else can let's look at the A's. What's the biggest amount of A's I can factor out? The biggest amount, since we have an a cubed, a squared, and a squared, the biggest amount would be a squared. Now let's look at our B. What is the biggest one we could factor? So we have a b squared, b cubed, and b. I would say the biggest is b because b will satisfy all of these. So now, okay, now we have a 15a squared times b, so I want to get a 15a cubed times b squared. So what do I have to multiply to get a cubed and b squared? Because we already have a 15. So all I need is an a. Because remember, when you're multiplying exponents, you're really adding. So that a squared times a1 is a cubed. So that's why it's just a. Now what about a b? So we have a b here, so we just need an extra b. What about, okay, so now we need a negative 45, so that's a minus. And it's going to be 3 because 15 times negative 3 is negative 45. And then we don't need any more a squared, so we're just going to leave it alone. And then we need a b's, but how many? We need a b squared, because if we do b squared times b1, that gives you b3. Good. So let's look at over here. So what do we need to multiply to get negative 60? We need to multiply by a negative 4. Because 15 times negative 4 is negative 60, and we don't need any more a squared and b's because we already have it. So this should be our final answer. That is our final answer. Let me erase it. So our second problem is is 7x cubed y cubed plus 21 x squared y squared minus 10x cubed y squared minus 30 x squared y. Okay, so I want to factor this. First of all, let's count how many terms we have. This whole thing is 1, right? So this is a 1. This whole thing is 1. This other one is 2, 3, 4. So we have a total of 4 terms. So when you have a total of 4 terms, you can do factoring by grouping. And it's not hard. It's just, we're just going to break it into 2. So I could break this into 2. So we have this section, this section and then this section. So I'm going to start on this section. So what can I factor out from these 2 terms? I could factor out a 7x squared and a y squared. when you factor that, you get xy plus 3, right? So do you understand? This is what I factor in. If you FOIL it, you're going to get this whole thing done, right? Okay, so let's look at this part. These two terms, so we have a negative 10x cubed minus y squared. Negative 10x cubed times y squared minus 30x squared times y. And I could factor out from these two terms, I could factor out a negative 10x squared and a y. So when you do your multiplication, you get an xy plus 3. Because when you FOIL it, you should get this whole thing. Okay, so notice that we have two terms that looks the same. We have an xy plus 3, xy plus 3. This means that factoring by grouping works. If you don't have two terms that are the same, then grouping by factoring won't work. So when you have two terms that looks the same, you just have to write it once. So we could rewrite it as xy plus 3. And then we have two terms. We have this negative 10x squared times y, right? And then this 7x squared y squared. You just have to combine it. So it's going to be 7x squared y squared minus 10x squared times y. And then that's pretty much grouping by factoring. So this is your final answer. And then third one, so the third one is we have 6x x to the fourth y to the fourth minus 6x cubed y squared plus 8xy squared minus 8. So I'm looking at it and I see that we have four terms, right? This is one term, this whole thing is a second term, and this whole thing is a third term and a fourth term. So grouping by factoring might work. So first off, I'm going to break it into two. So break this into two. So on this part, what can I factor out of this 6x fourth, y fourth minus 6x cubed times y squared? I could factor out is 6x cubed and y squared. Right, this is what I could factor out from these two terms. And then if you FOIL it out, you should get xy squared minus 1. So you know how I got this, right? I just had to FOIL it to get this answer. And then let's look at the second last term. So we have an 8x y squared minus 8. What can we factor out? I could factor out just an 8. So I'm going to do plus 8. And then this you get an x y squared. So when you multiply 8, you get this. Then it should be a minus 1. Because 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. Okay, so these two terms are the same. Xy squared minus 1. If we have two terms are the same, then factoring by grouping works. So we just have to write that once. Xy squared minus 1. And then you just combine the 6x cubed y squared and then plus 8. So just combine it. 6x cubed y squared plus 8. Let me bring it closer. So you have a 6x cubed y squared plus 8. So that's your final answer. Okay, let's do number 4. So you have y fourth plus y square minus 6, and then I'm looking at it, and we can't do grouping by factoring because it doesn't have 4 terms, so I'm just going to do some just regular factoring. So I'm going to see this y fourth, we need 2 terms to multiply to get y fourth, so I'm going to multiply this by y square, because when you multiply y squared times y squared, you get y fourth, because that's what we want. Okay, now let's look at this negative 6 and then this positive y squared. So you got to think about two numbers. When multiplied gives you negative 6, and when added gives you y squared. So I will use plus 3 and minus 2. Okay, so if you don't believe me, because like, okay, so 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and then when you actually FOIL this out, you should get this. So if you don't believe me, you could just FOIL it, right? You know how to FOIL, so y squared times y squared is y fourth. Y squared times negative 2 is negative 2y squared. 3 times y squared is plus 3y squared. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. And then when you combine that, that gives you y squared. 3y squared plus negative 2y squared is just positive y squared minus 6. So that's how I know these are true. Okay, so let's look at this. We have y squared plus 3 and then times y squared minus 2. Can we factor it out even more? Yes, but we can only factor out this one, right? The y squared minus 2. This is the perfect square, right? You know what the perfect square is like a plus b times a minus b equals a squared minus b squared. If you don't, if you don't remember these rules, there's a I have all the rules on college algebra on the playlist. So, and it'll be like factoring polynomials, and then it has all these rules. So if you don't remember this, just go back to the lessons. So okay, so this is a perfect square, so this could factor out by y. Sorry, this does not factor out. This can't be factored out even more, right? Yeah, so my mistake. But you will need to know about perfect squares and perfect square trinomials and difference of two cubes, because it'll make it easier. So your final answer should be just y squared plus 3 y squared minus 2, because it can't be factored out even more. Okay, let's do another one. So we have, let's factor out this one. We have 7x cubed plus 56 y cubed. So this looks simple, but it can actually be factored. We'll factor out. First, let's look at what is the GCF we can factor out. So we have a 7 and 56, so we can factor out a 7. So 7 parentheses x cubed plus 8 y cubed, right? Because when you FOIL it, so 7 times x cubed is 7x cubed, and then plus 7 times 8 is 56 y cubed. So that's why I factor out a 7. Now let's look at this let's look at this, the x cubed plus 8y cubed. This looks familiar. It's also the sum of two cubes. So if you're not familiar with sum of two cubes, the formula looks something like this. A cubed plus b cubed equals a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. This is going to make it so much easier when we factor it out. We can't just do it in our head so the sum of two cubes is going to help a lot. So a cubed plus b cubed equals a. So this part, a cubed plus b cubed, looks very similar to this part, right? So if this looks similar to this, then the right should look, so our answer should be in this form. Okay, so but we got to find out what is a and what's our b. So I'm going to say a is x and our b is 2y. Why do I say it? Because let's see, over here it says b squared. So what is b squared? That would be 4y squared, and then you have to times it in by an extra b. So okay, so b squared is 2y squared, 4y squared, and then you have to times it by an extra b, so that would be equals 8y. 8y squared, 8y cubed. So that's what we get here. And I know that a is just x because x squared is x squared, and then times it by another x is x cubed. So that's what we get here. So if we know our a's and our b's, we just have to put it in this part because we already have this. We already have this part, which is this part, the x cubed plus 8y cubed. So don't forget about the 7. So it's going to be 7. And then we said our a is, so I'm going to put it in this equation. A is x, and plus b, which is 2y, because that's our b. It's just substituting. And then a squared is x squared minus ab, which is, so that would be minus 2xy. And then b squared is just 4y squared. And this is our final answer. So yeah, knowing these rules, sum of two cubes, difference of two cubes, perfect square, trinomial, it'll make factoring so much easier. And if you don't know, just go back. You could go on my college algebra playlist, and it's under factoring polynomials. Let's do a last one for this section. So we have 81 r fourth minus 16 s fourth. So let's look. This really looks like the difference of two squares. Squares, right? It looks very similar. The only thing is that there's a fourth, so remember, so the difference of two squares is this part, is this formula. So we can say that our a is 9 r squared, and our b is 2y. Because when you do a squared, which is 8, what is the square? So we got to square 9r squared, so that's 81 r to the fourth. And then if we do our b squared, that'd be 4y squared. Sorry, no, b should be a is 9r squared and b should be 4s squared. Yeah, because when you square 4s squared, right, that's 16s to the 4th. So once you know your a and b, you just put it in this formula, because this part already is this part. But so if we know that part, so it should equal to this part. So we said our a was 9, so it's 9r squared plus b, which is 4s squared, and then a minus b, which is 9r squared minus b, which is 4s squared, right? Let's look at this carefully. So we have a 9r squared plus 4x squared, and then a 9r squared minus, can this factor back even more? Let's see, this can't be factored anymore, but this one can. It's also, we factor by the same difference of two squares. So, what are we going to say our a can be? Our a can be 3r, because when you square that, that would be 9r squared. And our b would be 2s, because 2s square that would be 4s squared. So it's this formula, right? A plus b and a minus b. So 3r plus 2s, and then it would be 3r minus 2s. And then don't forget about this, right? 9r squared plus 4s squared. Yep, that is your final answer, because it can't be factored out even more. So this section is just college algebra review, and this is factoring and expanding polynomials.